Hello and welcome to the after party. I'm No White Guilt, and with me, as always, is the wildly talented Great Order. We are going to stick with the format we used with Henrik and Lana of Red Ice because so many people seem to enjoy that format, where we talk a bit faster than normal and hyphenate some of our comments to give our guests more time. We are going to spend the first hour with our esteemed guests, address super chats, probably about halfway through. And then again at the end of the first hour, and then depending upon the super chats or questions or comments, we will go a little bit into the second hour. So it's going to be a bit different, a bit more exciting as it was with Henrik and Lana. And now appearing on the honors roll call today is back again the good girl, Albertus, Andrew, Bob C. Bourbon, Dainty Brighton, our very own David, Dr. Jellyfingers, Elaine Sabatino, our very own, and the great rising star, Fornull, Hamburger Today, Inquipper, Jason, J, John G, John Normie, and John M. Also Johnny and Johnny J, Lawrence, Omar Paul, Richard, Robert, Ryan, Silas Council, the very magnificent Spartan Warrior Queen, Saint McFreeman Thomas, and Trent. All a big thank you. I warmly appreciate your support, and I am most grateful that there are people like yourselves who are driven by a sterling character and sense of destiny. As for the Super Chat crown winner of last week, the crown goes to another Jason the Danish Greek, for investing a total of 26.66 build that wall around our family's dollars. Congratulations and a deep thank you, good sir. In second place was Marcus and Roy, both investing $25. Congratulations and thank you both as well. Super Chat, as always, on YouTube at 33%, on Entropy at 15%, and it'll be up in just a moment, where you can watch the stream, ask and vote on questions that you and others ask, and participate in polls that I post. Or you can also super chat on Cash App at 6%. Regrettably, Ko-fi and the familiar alternative are currently off the table. On the after party, Jared and I evenly share the super chats with our guests. Today, we are getting tapped into the one and only Angelo John Gage from the YouTube channel Reality Engaged with Angelo John Gage. We are digging into everything, Angelo, and I will pass it right over to Jared George to take us into this conversation.
Oh, it wasn't the mute button. It was the tab. I have too many tabs open now with all these different platforms. I have to be quick on the draw with the mouse. But welcome, Angelo, to the show. It's very good to have you here. First time you're on the show. And I guess after you say hello and introduce yourself however you would like to, we'll start with just a bit of trivia, how you were born in Italy. So we would like to hear about that and when you first came to America. And we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some of your audience knows who I am or what I was doing back in the day. I'm no newbie on the scene, but yes, I was born in Italy when I was 1984. I was born in a little town called San Clemente, little dirt roads, very farm-like area, very humble upbringings. And I came here when I was 2 years old because my father said, I'm going back to America. Now, my father is American, born in Kansas, but his father and his family went back to Italy, and that's where that's where it all started. My father met my mother, and blah blah blah, and here I am now. So I was always technically American blooded via my father, but I'm also an Italian citizen or whatever. I had my green card when I got here, and then I had to do the paperwork, and I became an American citizen. But yeah, it's interesting, and it's actually, I went back to Italy 2006 was the last time I visited. My entire mother's side is there. So half of my family is in Italy. But it's a beautiful country and it's great people. But again, even Italy is not safe from what's happening. Sadly, I even saw glimpses of it back in 2006. And that's a whole other story. But yeah, that's my background there. An Italian immigrant, I guess, if that's the technical term. But I don't know if it is because my father was American, or is American.
with an asterisk. Yeah, actually, there's one bit of intro I forgot. I'm just going to get in here before we go on. And that is this show today is dedicated to the memory of ER's mother.
Yep.
So he knows who he is. And this one is for your mother, ER. So, well, yeah, why don't we stay on that just for a moment then? What kinds of things did you see in Italy? And I'm always interested when people have spent time in another Western country, the comparisons and contrasts between life in the United States. I know you didn't live in Italy, it's been visits, but maybe even from speaking to relatives who live there day in and day out, what their experiences are like and what you've gleaned from that.
Well, the Italians are a lot different than Americans. Obviously, they're more laid back. They take off the entire month of August, just completely from work. It's pretty interesting.
A lot of Europe does that.
Yes. So it's like exactly like the Croatians and things like this.
Yeah.
They're all gonna go to each other's countries. I mean, even Germany. I was in Germany in August, and they go down to Italy, and the Italians go up to Germany, and everyone kind of swaps countries for a month.
Yep. It's pretty funny, but no, it's where I'm from. It's a small town. And everybody knew who I was. Oh, Figlio di Tommaso, which means the son of Thomas. So it's such a small town. Everyone has the son of or the daughter of. Oh, he's that guy from. So, and then they used to call me Americano, because I was an American. I'd come there when I was a young kid with my LA Light shoes that glue. Like, what's this technology? And I bought my roller skates and roller blades. And this is a small town. Nobody knows this stuff. But they're great people. They're very, the entire Italy's basically Roman Catholic, so they're religious people. They have morals and things like this. And I was, of course, raised as a Catholic. I no longer am, but I lived there till I was 2. I do remember some things. My grandfather, my mother's father, was on a wine farm, a winery. He worked on a winery, so there was that memory. A beautiful beautiful landscape, great food. It tastes different. The air is fresh. Like a tomato tastes really good. The personal pizza is delicious. I love the Italian food. The cheeses, you can't beat the cheeses over there. Buffalo mozzarella, if you know what that is, amazing. It's just so different because it's not industrialized like our country in the United States of America.
I was going to say, is that a lot of the taste of the food because is a lot of it de facto organic?
Yeah, people grow their own food. Like my grandmother had her own chickens. She grew her own peppers and tomatoes, and everything's handmade. The pasta's handmade, at home from scratch. You don't just go buy Barilla or whatever the pastas are here. They actually with the potato and they make the fettuccine and all this crazy stuff. So no, it's amazing. And the sauces. I mean, look, the tradition of making sauces every year, we brought it to America too. My family would get the big pots and boil the sauces and then make the sausages too. They hang them in the garage and they dry out like the hard salami sausages, all traditions from Italy. Yeah, it's really good stuff. My mom is the best cook ever. All my friends from high school, Ange, we want to come over, have your mom's food every time. My mom's a great cook. So, even to this day, we have her cook for our parties and stuff like this, when we have family gatherings. But yeah, Italy is a very beautiful country. And the thing is, what kind of made it strange was when I went to visit Rome in 2006, after I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to Rome and I ran into a Chinese restaurant of like Chinese food. And I was like, what? They have Chinese people here? And they even spoke in an accent like, ciao, come stai? I'm like, whoa, what? It's kind of funny. I mean, I have nothing against anyone, but I noticed a lot of tourists, it was like, it wasn't the same, like I remember one time I saw an African guy on the beach. I was like, why is there a black dude here in Italy? Isn't Italy supposed to be, this when I was younger, I had no idea. I didn't know that this was happening to the country, this swarm of, these third world immigrants or whatever. But, it's not safe like every other European country from this diversity agenda, this, plot or whatever it is. And, but yeah, my memories of Italy when I was a boy were always good. And again, my grandfather passed away, and at that point, we didn't go back as much, and that was it. So 2006 was the last time I went. But it had a profound impact on me to know what it's like to eat real, delicious food and to smell fresh air without all the industry. Because I live in New Jersey, guys, and this is a heavily industrial state, But it was beautiful there. I loved Italy. It's great.
What part again of the country is that town in your family's from?
So there's Rome, and then there's Naples, right? Casino or Caserta is the province I live in, so it's in the middle, and San Clemente is the town there. The closest like known mark is Monte Cassino, which the Allies bombed in World War II. Monte Cassino is this big, monastery place and all this other stuff. That's where I was born, in Monte Cassino, Italy. Not in a monastery, but that's where the monastery in the mountain was that was attacked or whatever. So there's a lot of history there. For example, my grandmother was a fascist. I mean, she was 93 when she passed away. So she lived almost a century, and she lived under Mussolini, and they didn't know. They just lived under Mussolini. And then the war came, and my grandfather would tell me stories how he spoke German and told the Germans, "Don't destroy this wine." He left notes and who wrote this letter? It was like he did a lot of stories from my grandfather too. Yeah, he was something. But yeah, there's
any tidbits you could remember that they've told you about living under Mussolini?
Not really. We didn't talk much about it. I mean, she just lived her life. She was like all they remember really is the war. Like how the Allies came in and the Germans are coming into Italy and stuff like this. Nothing. She didn't say like anything about him personally or how it was under there. I mean, didn't get to that conversation, but she would tell me how my grandfather had these little episodes with the Germans with the writing in German because he knew 12 languages. Well, at his adult, so he would write, "Don't break the wine." So that was just funny. But anyway,
don't mess with the wine.
Yep.
What were the impressions? I know it's been a while since you were there, but what were their impressions of Americans and what's going on in America?
They want to emulate us, and I kind of thought that was exactly. Like I noticed that over the years I'd go, they start dressing more like us. You know what I mean? Like the shoes and the clothing, and they have their little metrosexual look over there with the tight jeans and stuff, but. Even their morality was kind of breaking down. Like it wasn't like it's not good. The westernization of this country, I don't think, of Italy, it was just not the same. Because the fact I went to Italy, I was an outsider. I was an American, but now it's like these people are like Americans in a way. They want to emulate Americans, and I don't think that's a good idea for the Italians to emulate Americans. It's a different batch of people. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, the impression I get from my time there is that it should be unique. It should not lose its identity of, again, when I went to the Colosseum, I saw what my ancestors built. That thing is crazy looking, and all these ruins are there and people are just taking photographs of what was Italy, the beautiful, what's that? I forgot the name of that building. It has the MXV, all that stuff. I forgot what it's called, but anyway, all this architecture there is still there, built from Italian ancestors. And
I know this sounds crazy, but there's a word, and it's escaping me at the moment, where the Japanese tourists actually, before all this, all the great diversity came, when they would go to Paris or Rome, that they would actually get overwhelmed by the beauty of it. You know how the Japanese love coming and taking pictures? They take like a million different pictures when they're on vacation. There's this weird phenomenon that was so widespread that it was actually garnered its own term about how they would be overwhelmed by the beauty and sometimes like freak out by it. I mean, and it's amazing sometimes to consider an outsider's perspective on it. But yeah. Jason, you look like you were about to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, if we don't recapture our destiny, we are not going to be able to say our ancestors built those structures in Italy or in Germany or in England. They'll eventually rewrite the history, just like we can see is much more closer, much more tangibly, is that they'll eventually say there wasn't white erasure in South Africa. There weren't really any white people there to begin with. That'll be how they rewrite the history books. That's how they'll explain to the coming generations that why there are no white people in Rhodesia or South Africa anymore, or eventually Italy anymore, or eventually the UK anymore. But we're going to recapture our destiny. So we are going to be the ones who are writing the history, and we will write the history that, as we talk about here, writes ourselves in as the heroes of our own narrative, which exactly is exactly what we are. And we will be able to preserve then those things that matter to us, which is something that people like and this is something I guess that we can fulcrum with on our conversation with you, Angelo, and that is when you were a young man and you traveled back. I guess you were born in Italy, but then you immigrated to the United States at about what age was that?
I was 2 years old, and then we would every summer or so go
back.
Yeah, we go back for the summer, 2 weeks or so a month, and then once my grandfather passed away, I think it was 13 or 12, we stopped going at all, and then I went back when I was 22, so about 10 years later.
Big difference, I bet.
Yeah, of course. So it was a big difference there.
where were you on the political spectrum, just generally? Was your family a conservative family? Were they a patriotic, a nationalistic family?
Yeah, my family, I mean, they're so oblivious to this stuff. Like they're just, you know, my mother, she came to America. My father came with $5,000, didn't barely spoke any English, and he made his company. You know, at 24 years old, he had 3 kids in a house. That's impossible now. Okay.
Well, and let me just point this out to everybody. When our people were coming over as immigrants to one of our countries, there weren't programs handing out money and tax breaks so that they wouldn't have to pay taxes. There weren't these big organizations funded by our tax dollars to do the accounting in the background for these people. These were our people who, by their own industriousness, by their own intelligence, by their own ambition, built this country. And not what we have today. So please continue with what
he came here with a skill, masonry. So he built, you know, he built my house, he built everything. Not this house I'm in now, but he would build our houses. He would, you know, do masonry work, tile work, beautiful marble, everything. That's his skill. Always, he loves it. And him and his brother came. And they started with that, and then the friends came. They kind of came in like 8 colonies. Like, here comes my dad with his brother, and then their friends came, and they had to set up shop here together. And then my mother and I came afterwards, and my sisters were born here a few years later. But 24 years old, 3 kids, and he had 6-figure salary, a house. It was great, you know. And again, not a single penny from the government, no feelings of being owed anything, none of the, not trying to be Italian only and screw America, none of this hostile, you know, what we see today from the Latino Americans coming up here with the flags. And that it's, my dad didn't come waving an Italian flag and saying, screw America, you guys are evil. He came in there. My mother, she had to learn English. She barely spoke anything. And she had time, she even had a hard time making friends because she didn't speak English. But she eventually got to speak broken English and things like this. But yeah, total opposite what we're seeing now from all these other people around the world coming here. You know, this is our land now, and, you know, speak our language, screw your culture, you're all Nazis, or whatever the hell it is they call us. Not like that with the Italians. So they came here. I mean, even in the 1800s, there was some discrimination against Italians and Irish, obviously, you know, but hey, we blended right in eventually. In fact, my last name was Gagliardi. My great grandfather was a Marine too. When he got into the Marine Corps, they chopped it to Gage. So, you know, they kind of got rid of that for some reason. I don't know why they did it, or he did it. Someone did it, maybe to fit in better.
Anglicized it, yeah.
They anglicized him. Yeah.
Well, I think what's important about what you're saying there is that your family of origin was not politically minded in any way, and yet you were noticing still the assault on our identity. As you traveled from country to country, traveling back and forth, you noticed that things were changing. White erasure was taking place.
Well, I wasn't even aware what a race was. For example, I thought an Italian was anyone who had a last name with a, you know, a vowel. You know, like any ended with an I, he was Italian. It didn't matter if he was black or orange or whatever. I didn't understand. So when I was a young man, I was mostly like, I didn't care. I'm apolitical. Mostly like I didn't care. But because of my Catholic upbringing, I was against certain things, of course, like, you know, homosexuality, things like, obviously, because you, by the premise it's a sin or something like this, and you go along. So it's mostly conservative in that nature. But I didn't understand anything about race or borders or anything throughout my whole life. And then I got woke in 2011, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. And that was a whole nother story. But before that, yeah, apolitical. When I was 18, I voted for George Bush as a Republican, and then I went into the Marine Corps. I went to Iraq because of him, because of 9/11 and all that stuff. But yeah, mostly my life, I didn't care for politics. In fact, I still don't like politics to this day. I don't really watch the impeachment. I don't follow it at all. But I am, I guess, involved in the practical politics, the philosophy behind it. Is this right or wrong to push this policy type of thing? I don't know if that's meta politics. I don't know what to call it. But I don't like the dog and pony show that we're seeing across the planet with these parliaments voting and Brussels ruling all of Europe, and, you know, our government as well.
Agreed. Yeah, I do want to get into your story there. I'll just make a quick point that I'm very glad you said what you said about your family, because it humanizes a point that I made in a video series I did a while ago called The Morality of Nationalism. Actually, it's the first thing Jason and I talked about when we first started doing streams together, that series. And among many other things in that series, I mentioned that when you get this argument from people that Well, America, what about the Ellis Island immigrants from Europe? I mean, they were the Italians and the Irish and the Polish were the Hispanics of that era. No, 1890s Italians, by the time they were here 70 years, so say the 1960s, did they have an equivalent of La Raza? They might have had civic neighborhood organizations. They still recognize they have a common heritage. They want to keep certain cultural things alive. That's one thing. We're talking about a separate sense of destiny, a separate sense of identity, grudges, a whole industry around this. Things like La Raza, things like BET, things like mahogany greeting cards as a subsidiary of Hallmark for Black people. So you're seeing greeting card companies, award shows, TV networks, grievance groups, departments and universities, all with this grudge. You don't see the equivalent of those things. Yeah, there are differences among European peoples, and yeah, it was a little rocky in the cities when these peoples came up against one another. We're not saying that it was all peachy. We, in fact, talked to Greg Johnson about that the first time he was on the show on our July 4th Independence Day special in 2018, all about America. But there was enough there, and there is enough for that cohesiveness and for that recognition of common bonds. So I am glad that you said that, because it is not the same at all. And we need to keep on the front pedal when people try to get at us with that argument. Everyone in the chat needs to be well acquainted with that.
Right, exactly. And let me really quick, and what I would like to do in just a moment, Angelo, is get into your service as a Marine, and thank you for your service. That decision, as we were saying before the show, to do one's duty is such a Western thing, and has nothing to do with being duped by leadership and then leading us astray into other ends that we didn't sign up for. So that is not, so thank you very much for that decision to serve, because it's a decision to serve us as a people by way of the vehicle of a country. So thank you very much for that. But I do want to say, and it is important just to tackle what Jared just said about the static or the difficulty between different groups. We brought over, regrettably, at some point we can say, at least for, I guess, spiritual strength, at some point we were a single united people. And then we yielded to petty chieftains who led us in different directions and eventually into war against each other, our brothers. So there were long-standing petty grievances, which seemed much larger than they are, between these different groups from centuries of warfare back in Europe, centuries of having issues. So when these groups show up, and then the groups that are already here say, oh, well, that's part of the old group that was such a problem, I'm going to put up a sign that says they can't work here. That was the motivation behind that. These petty senseless grievances that had been held over for many centuries that we needed to get over, because we are nonetheless a single people. A single biospirit runs through all of Western kind. That is very different from groups of people that come in with a different biospirit and then begin to remake our environments into places that don't look like us, places that are uncomfortable to us. And eventually, as we know has been the case, where there has always been multiracialism. Now, multiculturalism is what you have in Europe among the white people. You have all of these different cultures. I mean, there are some universities in Europe that have like 50 different European cultures represented, and the anti-whites will not call that multicultural, because by multicultural, what they really mean is multiracial. They want to have different biospirits present. And where we see where different biospirits are present, we always end up with a cultural arms race, which ends up in warfare, which ends up in bloodshed. So that's a big difference. The Irish or the Italians or whatever they are, when they came over, the Germans, I mean, look at how the Germans were treated just prior to and during World War I in the United States. When these things happened, it was because of these animosities rather than the actual difficulty of assimilating, which you have with people who have different biospirits. But I'd like to get into, and Angelo, if you have any thoughts on that, please.
I do want to add one thing. Everyone who came here then appreciated this country for what it was. None of us came, even back then, like the different groups, the Poles, the Irish, whatever, they kept their traditions within the house. Like, again, like I mentioned, we do our own, we didn't go out in town and say, look, we have to have a national sauce day, or that's not what those groups did back then, or we did back then. Today, it's like you must do everything we want, and you must change the language, and you must make this day to that day now, get rid of Columbus Day. that's the difference. We appreciated America when we got here, and the people coming here today don't appreciate America. They want to change it into their other home, I guess, and do whatever they want and siphon the resources. And it's a terrible thing.
It is a terrible thing.
Yeah, it was sink or swim. Third of the immigrants from Europe in that Ellis Island era went back. That's a little known fact as well. They went right back to Europe for various reasons. It didn't work out for them. Maybe they didn't have the financial wherewithal, or maybe they just like, you know what, this isn't for us, and that's fine. But it just goes to show that, as Jason said, they didn't have the support and all this artificial support from the government that we see today. But since we've been dancing around it, why don't we start to get into, we definitely want to take some time with this, with your service and then what that opened your eyes to. Why don't we just begin with, and you started alluding to this, what was your original intention of joining the service and how did you see it?
Well, I mean, like I mentioned, my grandfather was in the Air Force until I didn't mention him yet, but my father's dad was in the Air Force, and he was an intel officer and all that. He was a major, and my great grandfather was a Marine. So it's in my blood, I guess. The blood of the warriors in me somehow. So when the towers were attacked, I remember clearly. I go, I have to do something, and I came from not a poor family. Like my dad was making good money. We lived in Warren, New Jersey, which is expensive to live in. I was pretty much, my life was quite easy, and that easiness made me feel like a little punk, like a little spoiled brat. I said, I need to do something to prove to myself that I'm a man. It's kind of egotistical or pathetic, if you will, but I needed to do something. And I said, what better way than to fight for my country, and that was just that warrior spirit coming out and saying, this is your destiny, go do this. And so I said, all right, well, I was only 17 then, so I couldn't join just yet, but I sought out my recruiter and said, look, I want to join. He said, well, we could do the delayed entry program, which you come to me every so often and we do these laps and we do exercise. You learn about the Marine Corps. And then you can, once you get out of the Marine Corps, they'll chop off a year from your reserve, you see? So anyway, but before I joined the Marine Corps, I went to this arms, what was it there? Like a arms appreciation. What was it? I forgot. It was some college. Anyway, it was some school or college which had all the armed forces there. Armed Forces Appreciation Day. And like, I went to the Air Force, I went to the Army recruiter, but the Marine Corps, the colors, the dress blues, the toughness, that's what drew me in. I was like, I want the best branch. I want the Marine Corps. So that's why I joined the Marine Corps. And I don't regret the decision of joining. I've had some bad experience, of course. I do suffer from PTSD and other problems. I know many friends who are messed up, but aside from that, I mean, you guys want to know the story from how I went into boot camp?
What about? Did you see anything with the multicultural angle in the armed services and what that's become?
Well, basically, a lot of the guys,
really, as Jason said.
The guys that I served with, I mean, a lot of them are Latinos, Mexican. There's a lot of people from the Midwest, a lot of white dudes, honkies, all these types. But yeah, no, the Marine Corps had as diverse as anything. It was really diverse. I had black drill instructors, black first sergeants. A lot of the officers, however, were white. So the non-NCOs, mostly minorities, but the higher ups, the manager class, if you will, that's what officers are. Many of them are white. A lot of the special forces are usually white folks, like Navy SEALs and these types of jobs. So, but no, it's interesting. The Marine Corps eliminated any sort of idea of race anyway, because you are now a unit of the government. You're just a machine. You're a killing machine. It doesn't matter what color you are, generation. In fact, boot camp, the first 3 months of boot camp is literally destroying your identity completely. Like, you're not even called anything but recruit. You have to ask permission to speak. You have to ask permission to go to the bathroom. Like, you are dehumanized to the point you don't even know who you are. So that when you become a Marine and you get the Eagle Globe and Anchor at the end of training, you cry like a girl. I cried. Everyone cried. All these tough guys, we just went through the hardest training ever because you get humanity back. Now you're a Marine, buddy. So no, it's an experience that I wouldn't take back. But as you alluded to, the war, as you said, I was when I learned about the truth years later, of course, it was heartbreaking. And my father had to sit me down and say, look, Angelo, I get it. I agree with you, because he found out the truth too, obviously. And it's like, you thought you were going to fight for this country and you were going to die for these people next to you. And frankly, also, when you get to war, the politics, once you get there, don't matter anymore. It's you versus them. It's someone's going home. It's survival. So it's sad, and it's sad to know that these Iraqis are trying to defend their homeland from us. And thank God I didn't kill anybody. If I killed people, I'd be way crazier than I already am. But I do know people who have killed people, and they're destroyed and all messed up, and they have dreams about the people they killed and stuff like this. It's very sad. Very sad what they've done to our troops and to Iraq and and every other country that we were getting involved in. But now I have this duty to do the real fight, which is here. You see, so
Right.
all that experience of going through hell has made me strong enough to endure every label, every attack. I don't even care about this stuff. I was willing to die. What are you going to do to me? What are you going to say to me? You know what I mean? So it's like it's very dangerous to the establishment when veterans get like this and they get woke, because we've already proven we're willing to die for our people, willing to die for a cause already. And if that was a fake cause, what about a real cause? You see? So that's my experience with the Marine Corps. I did 4 years, 2 tours in Iraq. And again, I don't regret it, but it was actually a blessing in disguise, because all the benefits I got, sadly, because I had to pay the price with my mental health and things like this. But it supports my family, and I can't get fired from anything. So I'm like invincible when it comes to this kind of conversation. So yeah, I don't know. Blessing in disguise.
You alluded to an awakening in 2011, so why don't we get into that?
So yeah, awakening. I mean, like, I didn't know what race was. I didn't know anything, and I started to. It's funny because the person who woke me up to Rothschild banking, and I don't know if we could talk about this stuff because I think in the thing you said, but anyway, we'll just say the elites. David Icke, of all people, the lizard guy. He had a book, and he woke me up to. He mentioned Rothschild Zionism, and I was like, "What's that?" And I looked into that, and then I looked into the other figures in history and other parts of history we can't discuss, and I was like, "Oh my God!" But that wasn't what got me, guys. That's not what got me to form the National Youth Front that went to campuses and called out the anti-whites. You guys know that that's what I did, right, back in the day. So
Yes.
identity
And that was
yeah,
a precursor to Identity Europa.
correct. So correct.
Essentially, this was a precursor to AIM today.
Yes. So I was back in the day, grandfathered into this movement, I guess. And my group was specifically going after colleges that were anti-white. I got banned from Boston University calling Seda Grande anti-white, and they proved me right. So it's pretty funny, but I did my activism on the ground. So I have my street cred in that regard. And what was I going to say? What was the question again? I forgot. I lost track. You asked me what was the
Well, we're starting just generally about what woke you up. You said so.
yeah. So not
about lizard people, but is not a lizard person.
Yeah. So I learned all the stuff the red pills give you, right? The bad, the crazy stuff. But what got me was the anti-white agenda. That's because everything else is history. Oh wow, really? That's what happened? Okay, what are you going to do? But then here's this nefarious plot in action today, and that's why NYF, my group, focused on. Okay, well, we have to stop the Marxists at the community colleges and the universities. I don't care about history. Okay, whatever, that happened. What about today? What about the anti-white, problem with whiteness class and all these other things? So that's what got me motivated. Because what am I going to do about historical things? Who cares? I'll write a book about it. This is what really happened, and argue forever. But this is an actual problem today: immigration, legal immigration, all this stuff, the anti-white agenda, the degradation of our people, and all this stuff. That's the problem that got me motivated to do activism. It wasn't anything else. It wasn't what I've read and what I saw in documentaries, and it was that fact that it's occurring today. As why you have the reason why you have this show and White Wellbeing and everything else, because it's obvious, and people are waking up to, even non-whites are going, this is obvious, the good ones. Yeah. So that's what got me into this. This is what woke me up to the nefarious plot that we face today, and that's what motivated me, not the other stuff, really.
So the military experience and then some of those early red pills kind of opened the door, but then it was just observing life.
Well, yeah. The military experience actually led me to run NYF like a military organization. It's kind of funny, actually. So, Nathan was a Marine too.
Yeah.
And
right.
he understood so I was more of like the motivational leader. He was the organizer of the things, and we had our little campaigns around the country and stuff like this. But a lot of people were really happy with me and they liked me. But then I got mad. They got mad at me. There was conspiracies about what I did with the printer money, even though there was a printer. Everybody knows the story. So stupid. A lot of trolls within the movement that destroy you you don't even know who these people are. They attack you. They say, oh, he's stealing money. He's a Mossad agent. It's just like, you know what? I was done. My wife was pregnant. I was about to have a kid. I stepped down. I said, I'm done. You guys, Nathan, take over. Do what you got to do. And that's how Identity Europa was born. And he went from there.
Now, at that point, were you also publicly doing videos and putting your face out on YouTube?
Yeah,
like
so I had a YouTube. My old one was like 5,000, nothing big, 5,000 subscribers, and it was.
Yeah, I remember. No, I remember you from years ago. I'm just saying, I don't know if it was concurrent with the activism.
Oh no, my YouTube was with the activism. Yeah, I mean, I would even make videos making fun of Antifa for trying to shut us down, and I said, hey, we still got the money for the print. Like they sent me these like envelopes full of glitter. So if you open it, it blows up in your face. And I'm like, oh, you mean these envelopes? And because I didn't fall for it. I was like, you idiots. And I'd make videos making fun of them, and I'd argue people. But it was all right, the YouTube. But I was very non-PC there. Things that wouldn't exist today, it wouldn't even be allowed to be said in today's YouTube standards. But eventually, I got so sick of the infighting in this community, not this community, but the communities out there, that you see now there are people who are not good individuals who do bad things, and individuals who say stupid things and look good and not look good and stuff like this. So there was so much infighting that I was like, I just don't want anything to do with these people. I don't even know who these people are. Who are these avatars? I don't know them. No disrespect to those who have to protect their families, but I just can't take this right now. So I just vanished. I said, I'm done. I like to work alone. And that's actually been better for me. Frankly, it's been me not part of any groups of any sort, just being a voice. It like doubled my Twitter following and, just doing what's right. But yeah, I mean, the activism was interesting. It was fun. And but I'm glad it's has evolved into more now. It's getting more effective. So
what was so you just had the old YouTube channel, you nixed that.
Yeah.
I know you came back shortly and then you rebooted yet again. So what is the kind of vision and what has prompted you, what guides you now in your Reality Engaged with Angelo Gage channel?
Reality Engaged is it's supposed to be a show where I just talk to different people about how they view reality. It could be any ism, left wing, I don't care. But so far, I've only have connections to people I can reach out to. You know what I mean? So I've reached out to Gilad Atzman. I've reached out to Cynthia McKinney. They were on the show. I had Kevin McDonald on. I had Tom Sunik on to talk about communism, different topics. I had JF Grapey talk about abiogenesis. I mean, anything about reality. And I've invited even Destiny, the left wing guy, to come on. He was supposed to come on. I don't know if that happened or it never happened, but I don't care. The show is not about me debating people. It's about letting someone come. I'll invite someone who's LGBTQ. I'd be like, all right, if you want to talk about, tell me why you feel like this, not questioning them. I had a Shlomo Gordon, this Jewish Israeli candidate in Israel, candidate from the Knesset. He was on the show explaining to me why Zionism is good and this and that. And I didn't really push back. I let him speak for 3 hours. That's what Reality Engaged is. So it's just like, that's the purpose of the show. What drives me philosophically or politically is what you want to know, is what is my stance now, you mean? Or
well, I guess we can get into that. Jason, did we have any super chats to clean up before we get to that?
Yes, I was just going to have a look at those. We had the very first was Food Police. I think it was a sticker there with $2. Thank you very much for that kind investment. And then Food Police again with $2 more. And this time writing, Montana belongs to Mexico, and a little smiley face. Thank you so much, Food Police. And then, of course, the great, well-known, wonderful participant in our community, Mrs. Jess Horst, $4.99, writing on her mother's side, had to prove a sponsor job and a job in place and prove housing coming from Germany in late 1800s to early 1900s. So thank you very much for that. That certainly we didn't have to identify and understand and sympathize with when it comes to our people, the long journey from the country of origin to the welfare offices in our states, which is what we have to sympathize with now when we're talking about the border crossers. Let's see.
And quickly on that, if you want a story on that, go back in our archives on the afterparty.tv and listen to our recent show from October with John Q. Publius about Maine. John's been on the show a few times. We definitely recommend talking to him, Angelo, if you haven't. But he really gave this detailed analysis of how they're shipping people into Maine. We know what's going on in other places, but he's familiar with Maine, and it is mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we also have Hordebert Hildebrand super chatting $9 Norwegian krona. Not writing anything, but saying a lot with that krona. Thank you, my dear friend. And back 2 more times, the great Mrs. Jess Horst. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, if you don't know who she is, she's a mother of many children, a fine, healthy, beautiful brood, and with a wonderful husband. $4.99. Thank you, my dear lady. Writing, mind you, my family were drawn over here by flyers from the state of Ohio advertising to them to come settle the land. So asking them, hey, come on over and do your thing. We have plenty of free land, but you're not getting anything from us. You've got to prove that you have work and a job and a place to be. And then again, back with another $4.99. Thank you, my dear lady. All of this for the cause of white well-being. These dollars sacrificing somewhere in their home, in their lives, so that they can put the money here to the protection and the support of their families. Thank you for your service. She's writing to you, Angelo. My husband did 1 tour in Afghanistan, 2 tours in Iraq. He still talks about how crazy Fallujah was. And we also have a thank you, Mrs. Horst, to your husband for his service, answering that call to the biospirit of our people, something truly heroic, even when we are led astray, even when in the past we have been led against each other, which we will never allow again. We have Andre over here on Entropy. Thank you very much for super chatting on Entropy, where the good people at and behind Entropy receive 15% of that super chat, writing, your videos have inspired me to pursue my life goals relentlessly and spread white well-being to others. I wish I could give you more than this small super chat. Best from an Eastern European brother. Well, big love to you back from the state of Virginia, my dear friend. Thank you very much for that testimony. That testimony is worth millions to us. So don't shed a tear whatsoever at the numerical value of the currency you are sending. Your words, your sacrifices, your service to the cause of white well-being mean everything in the world. So thank you for coming here and going free with us. And that is all we have for Super Chat so far. So we can dig back in, Jared.
I do want to say one thing to that lady with the husband and make sure you get your benefits. Make sure you claim your PTSD. I guarantee he has it. I'm sure she probably didn't mention it, but there are benefits out there that you deserve. And knowing that you've been lied to and sent to these places, you definitely damn well deserve them. And again, I don't know one person who's seen combat that's normal, come back normal, not one. So you got to get your benefits. Don't feel bad, that you're getting money from the government. It's there for you. And you need the help. You definitely look. It helped me. Without it, I wouldn't be able to get the house and married and all that stuff. So you gotta do it. I've helped a lot of my fellow Marines get their benefits. Set them up for life because they didn't even do like, what do you mean? Really? Yeah, man. They didn't tell you. Of course they didn't tell you, and they reject you. And then 5 years of fighting, and then you get your benefits. But make sure you get all veterans. Make sure, war veterans especially. If you have the combat action ribbon, you've seen combat, you have PT, you better go get your benefits because they're out there. Listen, if these people cross the border, get their benefits, not even being American citizens, you damn well deserve them first. So,
amen to that.
So you studied that and worked that out so you can help people with that.
Yeah, my friend Michael, who passed away, he actually went to go work for the VA. And he basically said, this is what you need to do, and this is how you need to say things. Because the doctors can't prove what's in your head. You have to tell them, this is how many times this happens frequently. And if you say the wrong thing, they're going off a list. They say, oh, he only has a panic attack once a week. Well, that's 20%. Like that's how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
They go off these charts when, like you look at me, I look like a normal person, but I can't stand people. I can't go to work and be normal and deal with stress all the time, but they can't tell that, they go off like, well, does he dress well? What does it have to do with anything? But so they go. So my friend was telling me like, look, this is what they'll do if you say this, if you do if you say that. And he tells you, it warns you not to chop yourself at the feet because that's what they're looking for, excuses not to give you the percentage you deserve. So when I claimed my benefits, they gave me this, percent here. I should have been here the whole time, and they gave it to me free. So, 5 years of fighting, they back paid me to this, and that's when I had a nice sum of money, and a lot of benefits come from that. Again, the GI Bill you have to pay into. I did go to college twice, but I dropped out twice. I used to do things and I'd stop. I was selling energy and energy consultant stopped. Massage therapist stopped. What's this? It's PTSD. You look up PTSD, you lose the interest in doing anything. You lose interest in making friends. You lose interest in having sex. Well, that I never lost interest in. In fact, I did too much of that when I was single, because that's a thrill-seeking thing, partying and chasing women. And again, that's also PTSD, thrill-seeking and trying to find that oneness in the moment. But all these things, like not finishing college, and even when I had a 3.6 GPA or whatever, got accepted to Rutgers, I just left. In fact, I left in May of the next semester. Same teachers. Oh, you're back? Yeah, I left again. I'm like, this is not for me. I don't want to be a slave. That's what I thought. But anyway, but yes, it's I want to make sure veterans take care of themselves, because a lot of guys don't know how this system works. They don't know saying the wrong thing will get them the wrong percentage and things like this. So, that's a whole video in itself, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's valuable you have that information, and I'm sure a lot of people.
Oh, I have, yeah. So at least I did that for them, and then others that I help others. So I just saw a post my buddy wrote, "Hey, I helped my buddy get this much." I go, "Phew, thank God, Jesse." Because I helped Jesse get it, my friend Jesse Miller. So anyway.
Well, that's good to hear. You were about to talk about more of the framework of where you're coming from now.
Yes. So I know you sent questions about transcending tribalism and all these other things. I don't know if you want to get into that, but
yeah, you've mentioned some things like that.
Yeah. So me, what I realize is this: what transcending tribalism is this. There's toxic tribalism, where you take your group and you think you're superior to everyone and you want to conquer people and all that other stuff. And our enemies that do the same thing, whether it be certain groups in the East or African American groups that are like Black Panthers or La Raza. The toxic tribalism to me is when you lose your humanity and you adhere to the group collective and lose your individuality, in a sense. Okay. But healthy tribalism, which we all are part of a tribe, whether you want to be or not, is that you love your tribe and you also respect other tribes. Okay. But me transcending tribalism altogether is this. I said, it wouldn't matter what tribe I belong to. I would still be saying the same stuff I am right now. I still be advocating for the end of anti-white, hatred, even if I was Black. So I realized, even though I'm from Italy, I was in America, which that in itself, leaving my country has made me feel rootless. I'll be frank with you guys. I don't feel like I belong either here or Italy, to be honest with you, because of that. So I might be a very rare type of person who is not supposed to be part of a tribe, if you will. Okay. But that doesn't mean I'm against, for example, white tribes or any other tribes at all. In fact, a good person who transcends tribalism respects the nature and its order of tribes and groups. And even be saying I'm a non-tribalist, let's say, is a tribe itself. So there's no escaping these distinctions, obviously. But yeah, transcending tribalism really is a spiritual thing of knowing that you don't side with a tribe, you side with justice. And if you side with justice, the spirit of justice, you will do right by all tribes. Non-aggression principle, all that stuff, you see? So live and let live. You guys want to mix? You don't want to mix? Okay, do what you got to do. Good luck to you guys. That's what transcending tribalism is, in my view. It's anti-supremacy, which is another philosophy that drives me to do what I do, because anti-supremacy is essentially that I am an individual person. I do belong to a collective, I'm sure, whatever, but I want nothing to do to rule or lord over any other group whatsoever at all, period. But the second they break that, now there's a problem. Now I have to defend my people, my tribe, whatever the group I'm part of. So anti-supremacy, because people say white supremacist, they're implying that whites want to rule the whole world or something and enslave people or something like that. And that's not the case. People want to live and let live, obviously. So anti-supremacy goes against the people saying that that's what we want to do. And if they reject me, they're automatically supremacists. So if when I'm an anti-supremacist, say, look, I don't think diversity should be forced on anybody, and they go, "Oh, you're wrong. It has to be." Well, now they're supremacists. So that's their diversity supremacists. These people don't want diversity. I don't care why they don't want it. It's not my business. Who am I to tell them how to live their lives? What philosophy can I put out there to justify that they're morally inferior with their worldview? There is none, because it's subjective. So that's what anti-supremacy is.
So a few things there. I can personally, perhaps built a little bit similarly, where I remember I was 8 or 9 years old and I stood in my bedroom and reasoned to myself, well, if I were born in another city, I'd be asked to root for another baseball team. So when you're having thoughts like that on your own at 8 or 9 years old, the die is kind of cast. I'm not tribalist by nature. High school pep rallies for baseball or football team or whatever, I felt like there was this glass wall, this invisible wall between me and most of the people who were like, rah, 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 just it didn't mean much to me. So people might have known me then or look at that personality trait and find it odd that I'm doing what I'm doing today. I don't, and I've spoken about this, and there's a lot to it. But I would say there's a lot of self-awareness, and you have to do your own work and come to a better understanding of yourself. Even if you recognize yourself as an outlier, and perhaps that's what you're saying, Angelo, in certain regard, maybe you recognize there's certain outlier traits that you have, you can't build a society of outliers. No. And outliers have to recognize, we need them to have the wherewithal to recognize that perhaps they might have certain cognitive traits or personality traits that lead them to more openness and more exploration. And they might get together with other who are like them and think that they can form this tribe, as you were saying, of their personality type. But personality type is not enough.
Right.
So you might have artists or innovators from England meet artists or innovators from Japan, and they might hang out and be like, man, this is great. Why can't the whole world be like us? We're so intellectual and artistic and creative and open and free, and why can't the whole world be like us? Well, guess what? It takes all kinds of different personality types in this kaleidoscope to make a society, a nation. And it's great to have people who can cross-pollinate ideas, but then ultimately I want to see them go back and do things that are good for their people, for their nation. So the personality trait is like one spoke, but there's many spokes in the wheel, and then there's the hub. And so I understand what you're saying to a degree. But when it comes to the live and let live thing, yeah, I mean, there's to some degree, we don't live in a world today where you can, even with people you know and are close to, you can't physically make someone not marry this person or do this thing. But I would ask you about, what do you think about asserting your will to some degree? Because if it's a friend or a family member who doesn't care about their heritage, if you don't assert at least what you've learned and why it means something, then nothing's neutral. There's going to be other forces that rush in to fill that vacuum. And we know that the agenda, mainstream agenda, the megaphone, is things that are antithetical to everything that we're talking about and wants to disassociate people's bonds and heritage and anything in the past and anything meaningful, and just have the whole globo homo thing, right? So if you don't assert any will, if you don't assert any influence on friends and family and the people who are in your spheres of influence, then you're leaving them open to those nefarious influences that are out there in the mainstream culture.
Well, of course, you could always educate people. Okay, you could always say, look, this is the reality and this is what that is, but they're always going to choose on their own. I can't force them to do what they are going. Like, for example, I'll share this intimate story with my family. So there was my sister, before I got woke, okay, she was dating a young man who was now her husband, and he's a mixture between Indian and Swedish. Okay, so his father is like this Swedish dude, blue eyes. His mother's Indian one. They're great people, nice people. Before I was woke, I was like, oh yeah, whatever. And then when I got racially woke, oh my God, no! I said to my sister, hey, what are you doing? You got to dump this guy. I know he's great, but you need white babies. You need white babies. And for 5 years, I disowned my sister because I was not a hypocrite. I said, I'm not doing it. This is not the way it should be. I was always making these moral arguments, all these other things like this. And she said, I love him. I don't care. And it was a shame that I did this, but it was a learning experience. And eventually I realized, Angelo, you're contradicting yourself, because first of all, you have friends who are mixed. They have mixed children. You don't say anything. This is your family. So now it's personal. You feel like a failure as a brother. You failed to stop the machinations of the enemies trying to mix your people away. Right. Then I realized, I said, what's the difference if I tell my sister not to do this? There was a law against it, versus the Mongolian hordes invading Europe, raping all of our women. They're both supremacist actions. You see, me telling my sister what to do, I can tell her don't do it, and she can go no, and I have to respect that. Do I have to approve it? That's another story. But today, I made up my sister. Everything's fine. My niece, she's healthy, because what is it? It's the idea that mixed children have less health more health problems, this and that. I don't know the science. I'm not a biologist. I went through all that stuff, and I said, you know what? All that matters is the quality of the person. So did my sister mix her heritage away? Yes and no. 50% of it's gone, surely. But what does that even mean? That's an arbitrary, subjective thing. She doesn't value that, so she never was on the team of white, I guess you will. But she doesn't hate white. She's not anti-white or anything like that. So this was something in my personal life I had to deal with, and I dealt with it by just pretending she was dead. That's why I said, you know what, she's gone. I have another sister; she's not doing that. But me, I have my family. My wife's Irish, Italian. My wife's Irish and German. My son is blonde hair, blue eye, looks like a poster boy, beautiful kid. But the thing is, what I did to my sister was just not in line with my nature. And what she does with her gene pool, even though it's partially mine and our ancestors, is her choice. And if we take that away from her for our own ideologies or whatever you guys believe or anyone else believes, then we by nature become supremacists in that way. So I'm an anti-supremacist, and I said I can't. I had to actually reach out to her and say, look, this was my worldview. I don't even believe this part anymore. You're my sister. I love you. Everything's fine. And then we meet up. It was a hard time for our family. My parents always try to get us together. Angelo, come on, talk to your sister. Talk to your sister. Like, no, no, no. So I was so fanatic in that way. But at the end of the day, it's, a lot of the stuff you have to realize, guys, a lot of things we're told about genes and things like that. I'm not saying race doesn't exist, but what matters is, to me, I realized that what matters is the person. Who are they? If you have a white dude who's superior physically, mentally, beautiful, everything, but he's a murderer, what good is he? You see, my point. I'm not saying go mix out. I'm not saying go mix everybody. I don't do it. I don't prefer it. That's me. But I'm saying at the end of the day, you have to judge people for who they are, literally as a people, as an individual person. Now, again, I'm not promoting race mixing, marriages, or anything like that. They will happen. A minority of them will happen. 1%. I don't know what the percentage. It could increase. It may not. It may fail. It may not fail. But most people mix with their own people. That's just reality. That's how it's always been. If that weren't the case, we wouldn't exist today, right? We all have different races and groups. So that was one of the hardest challenges to overcome, because at the time, here I was, leader of the National Youth Front, pro-white organization, having a sister who does that. Can't do it, right? I got to fight back against it. But that's how I am. The side of justice means that what's right is the most important, and it's not right for me to tell my sister what to do with herself, or anyone for that matter. You know what I mean? Now, asserting my will, I tried to. I said, look, I'm not going to be your brother anymore, hoping that she would wake up and go, oh, he's right, or whatever. Okay. But that didn't work. And all it did was hurt me and my family. So there are sometimes you cannot assert your will. Your will has no, you could assert your will for yourself. If I will to lose 30 pounds, if I will to speak out against anti-white hatred, if I will myself to form an organization, to go to college campuses and protest, that's all my will that could be exerted. But none of that would matter if no one came with me, if everyone chose not to go with my will. You see, in order, a great leader will make his will part of something everyone wants to get involved in. You see, it's like, oh, I like what he's saying. I like what he's doing. You can't just be like, look, you will go here unless you're in the military. You have to do it. But again, it was very hard for me to deal with for 5 years. It's a shame, and I don't even actually don't even think it's a shame. It's a learning experience. And again, I have my family, so my family, my genes, my everything. That I'm gonna have another baby soon. That's all we can think of doing. Take care of yourself. And of course, if you want to educate people, do it. Tell the truth. It might be uncomfortable. It might cause fights, but at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say to you is that you could only do so much as a person. You can't take a horse to water and make it drink. You can only take it to the water. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I learned from that experience. But it's a very personal story, and I'm sure the SPLC and ADL would just use this. Oh, look what he said. I don't care. It's personal life, and in fact, it proves that I've transitioned from more fanatical views. I'm not saying they're immorally inferior or not. I don't do the moral or inferior game or not. That's all subjective. But I transitioned from what was more a fanatical view from my end to, okay, this is who I really am. Because even during that time, it was breaking my heart. Why would it break my heart if it was true to me? It wasn't true to me. You see. So anyway, that was a little personal story. Hopefully, maybe you have questions about it, wonder, or someone else does, or But it's a tough thing because during my activism, a lot of people said to me they have stories just like it. Well, my sister's dating this dude. What do I do? You know, and it was like tough on them because they have this ideology they have to stand up with, otherwise they're not part of the group, and that's just not true. You could be a part of the group and have, you know, black brothers. How does that stop you from being pro-white and white well-being? You know what I mean? It doesn't. I could adopt 5 kids from Africa and it wouldn't stop what I'm saying. I'm not going to. I know there's, but I'm just saying, you know.
Well, I really have to say I thank you for really sharing that very personal
Yeah,
story.
it's very tough.
My heart breaks for you and that struggle and that pain, and I know that this is happening for just so many of our families. Our brothers and sisters out there are suffering because their family members have made decisions that now make family functions, family get together, the family structure very difficult to get through. A lot of our people have been utterly compromised because they would have otherwise served white well-being, but now they feel like it's impossible, especially if the family member who has decided to take a non-white spouse or what have you, or they've taken a white spouse, but they're radically anti-white. Especially if they have a radically anti-white position, these people become compromised. I know parents who have children who have taken radically anti-white positions who are compromised. They don't feel like they can participate because it's going to be so upsetting to their children, even though they care about white well-being. So this is a very personal road, a very personal path that everyone has to walk if they have this going on in their lives, in their families. And it's an extremely difficult thing because you have to decide, and there are a lot of dynamics at play here. How, you know, what is the state of mind of, let's continue with your example, but we'll switch it. We'll say that it's a brother that has taken a non-white woman for spouse, and they have children. Is this brother extremely anti-white? Is he going to demand that you subject your children to his ideology in their presence? Is he going to, you know, and that sort of thing? I can see a lot of people, and I would definitely commiserate with the decision to reject such a sibling, to have nothing to do with them. And then there are going to be other situations where the sibling or parent or cousin or whatever it is, where they're not radically anti-white. They're not going to try to force anti-whiteism on you. You grew up with the person, or you still love the person, and therefore you're going to continue a relationship with them, and you will be teaching. They know that you will be teaching your children to be white positive, to serve white well-being. And that doesn't mean that serving white well-being is open to everyone to participate. There is no immutable characteristic that prevents you from serving white well-being. So it was like I was talking about having a non-white person come as a date or something. This was a couple of weeks ago on a Going Free stream, and I said that in my scenario, if I showed up at an event and somebody was there like that, I would be an adult. I would go to this person and I would take them aside and I would say, look, I'm white positive. I serve white well-being. If there's going to be a problem with that, then the problem is with you. The problem is not with me. You're the one who's going to have to put up with me serving white well-being. I'm not going to be quiet so that you can be anti-white. I'm not going to idly sit here silent and take some sort of anti-white claptrap speech throughout the family get-together. So this is a difficult thing, and everyone in their own way has to handle this, and it depends on the relationships. It depends on the family dynamic.
Well, I agree with you. I think that when someone decides to do, again, I'm not saying this is wrong. You see, this is something I used to think was a bad thing and wrong, and perhaps maybe you guys do in your view, but ultimately it's more important that what Jason just said is that it's the person's not hostile to what you're doing, of course. So now my sister's not trying to tell my son, well, you got to marry a black girl or something. Nothing like that. And that wouldn't happen anyway. So that's the thing. They're going to make these choices individually. There's probably people listening who have these scenarios and
Yes.
maybe took an extreme thing like me and said, F it, I'm done. But they should take into account, listen, you're only hurting yourself and your family. You're splitting it up. Unless the person is, like you said, anti-white and is telling you that you're a white supremacist for not sleeping around, then I would disown that. But what my sister was neutral politically. Her side of the family, her in-laws are wonderful people. They've always been. It was so stupid of me, but lesson I had to learn. Again, do what you will. Everything you do has a price or whatever. But I think it's more important to make sure that people are not against your well-being, as you mentioned. That's really the key that should be considered. You know what I mean? So if they were super anti-white, yeah, of course, you should disown them just on that basis. Forget about the race mix. just the anti-whiteness alone, you should get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, it's complicated. It was tough, but I tell you, I learned a lot from it. And again, I'm not promoting it to anyone. So people are, oh, look at Gage, he's promoting. I'm not. I'm just telling you my personal life. This is what happened, and this is how I handled it, and it worked out better this way for everyone. So.
No, I think that's it's a beautiful thing to share. Actually, that those moments of pain, because so many others are going to be identifying with that. I guarantee it.
Of course, yes.
I so many people in the white positive sphere who have family members who are anti-white and have chosen non-white spouses to escape, or date non-white people to escape their white skin, to escape our white identity, our peoplehood. They have, or they didn't, or they're not anti-white. They're not sociopolitical at all. And it certainly, this has happened earlier in history, and when these peoples have lived overseas in places and they've taken non-white mates. We have people in this community who at earlier points in their lives took non-white spouses, have had mixed race children, and then have realized, wait a second, I don't want Western kind to be eradicated. And they have come back and they have said, look, I have this kind of a wife, I've got these kind of these children, and I am all 100% now serving white well-being. I still love my wife, I still love my children, I still love, and then the women are saying still love the husband, but they are going to now stand, and in some cases that has meant that the relationship has ended. There's a really prominent woman who runs a lovely website whose marriage ended because when she got married, she got married to a non-white person and didn't realize, wasn't motivated to serve white well-being. And she came to this realization later in life. She realized upon discussion with him that he was not going to support the decision to stand up for Western kind and Western civilization. And so she realized that situation had to be severed. So there's going to be, ladies and gentlemen, please understand this. You all, if you are struggling with this, come back, come to us, and be with me on the Going Free streams. Be with us on these tap episodes. You are not alone. Angelo is not alone. And this is a movement of redemption. We are here to help all of us heal from all of these wounds that the anti-white world has inflicted on us. And this is one of those big wounds, because most of our family members who decide, and friends who decide, who make this decision to take a non-white person as a mate, are not making that decision because it was just out of love. Not saying that can't happen. Certainly that can happen. Two people of different races can fall in love, and has and always will be able to happen. But in most cases, the choice has been taken away from our people. The choice has been taken away with the propaganda that says that a white mate is going to be dumb, you're going to be awful, everything's going to go bad. A non-white mate is cool, it's hip, you're smart by doing so. Also, you're evil for being white. And so all of these non-white groups are good. And so white people, white flight out of our race on over to escape who they are by taking a non-white mate. In most cases, we find that is the reason why they took a non-white mate. So they are injured by anti-whiteism. Through the totality of their lives, they're injured by it. Now, we can understand that injury. We should understand that injury. But we should also understand that when they become an adult, they have agency, and they are going to make a decision about whether or not they are going to continue to injure us. Now, if your relative is like Angelo's sister, and she's not going to try to teach Angelo's children to be anti-white, she's not going to browbeat Angelo for teaching them to serve white well-being, That is one situation. That's a situation where you can come to some sort of harmonious relation to whatever degree that's possible. But some of you, ladies and gentlemen, will not be able to find that sort of harmony. And in those cases, when you can't, do not allow these people to harm you further. Do not allow their sickness, their white noir. Certainly do not allow them to harm you, but absolutely do not allow them to harm your children. Don't allow there to be an anti-white aunt or an anti-white uncle who's going to say in front of your children that it's awful when people care about Western kind and Western civilization in front of your children. Do not allow that kind of thing to happen. Get away from those people. You can have, there's a spectrum here. There's no clear-cut divide. We're human animals. We're human beings. There's going to be a spectrum of emotion, a spectrum of scenarios in which we're going to have to make these decisions. And I'll tell you what, sometimes you're going to be on one end where you're saying, look, this family member or whatever it is not going to be harming me and my children, and so we'll be able to carry on in some way. Or you'll be at the other end. You might be like me, where when I was in junior high school and I was started fighting for our people, and my mother said, you know, this is the end of this. You're not going to wear that jacket with the Confederate flag to school anymore. This is the end. And I said, if you're going to oppose me, then I have no mother. And she knew that I meant it. So there's going to be the whole spectrum, and we all are going to have to be okay with falling short in all things of what we would like to have a perfect scenario. We have to make room for all of us to fall short, because since we are human beings, we are all going to fall short of perfection in one way or another. And yeah, I got a closet over my shoulder here. Everybody's got things in that closet over our shoulders. So there's no use in saying that this person over here is no good because of X, Y, or Z, because you have something back there that you're no good for, that you've done wrong. You have some reason that you're falling short. So my heart goes out to you, Angelo. Thank you very much for that. I could feel the emotion and the struggle that you experienced when you had to come to grips with this. And just know, I mean, you are, by saying that you're going to serve white well-being, that you're going to teach your children to serve white well-being, and that you're going to protect them from anti-whiteism. That's all that needs to be known about a man.
Yeah,
That's all that needs to be known.
I do want to add, like I mentioned, that I felt rootless myself. My family, becoming Americanized in a sense, also lost their identity in Italy, kind of thing, Italian identity. And so there was no, my parents didn't instill in us any pride to be Italian. Sure, we did, you know, the sausage stuff and things like this, but they were trying to adapt to this new, you know, bastardized country, if you will. We have all these different people. What is an American, you know? And so my sisters and myself, we didn't know, again, anything. It's not like when my sister would date white people, of course, here and there, but it wasn't because, how would I say, find yourself a good Italian boy. That was what I would always say. You know, my father said, hey, find yourself an Italian. But, you know, like I said, people fall in love from different races and stuff like this. But there was no anchor for her to say, oh, he's a cute guy, but I don't, you're sorry. You know what I mean?
You
Like
know,
if you ask, when I asked my wife, what'd you think of this? She goes, I want my kids to look just like me. I don't envision myself dating an African-American guy and having people who don't look like that's her. She's not racist. She's just, that's my preference. You know, people, you know, and so anyway, but that's a whole other story. And I just say to people, you know, again, I agree with you 100%. If it's not a hostile relative, then that's fine. If it's hostile, get rid of them. It's better off.
Before we get to the super chats and some of the audience questions, which will take us out into the latter part of the show, but just to that point, and it's great to hear a conversation like this. And like Jason, I thank you for your honesty. You know, we've had a lot of people open up about things on this show, and we're very happy about that. We take that as a point of pride that people are comfortable with us and the kind of atmosphere that we create here with our chat and the community here. So we always appreciate that, everyone's honesty. We wouldn't want it any other way. And I echo what Jason said. You know, he's a man of great empathy and wisdom, and I'm very proud to be his brother and partner in this, and to have great people like you, Angelo, on the show. I would just like to ask if there's anything you can share, since we're talking about it. I do think it's important to maybe round it this way. Of you and your wife raising your children with a consciousness, whether it's specifically your Italian heritage. I know she's Irish and German, so specific ethnic things, but also nested within that, an overarching European civilizational, racial kind of consciousness. a lot of the things that I do in my own videos or my own output, and certainly something that brought Jason and I together, and you can tell by how Jason just addressed you, is we're coming from a positive place, an affirmative place. And a lot of what I want to do, not that I'm an expert by any means, but as I learn and I can then put it back out there and articulate it in certain presentations, is I want to give us back to ourselves. And I very much feel what you said, and I'm sure even people increasingly, sadly, in Europe itself, feel that sense of rootlessness, or certainly aren't as connected to the trajectory, that continuity through time of their people's story. And I have a few different ways of doing this. I did the Who We Are video recently that really hits on what unites us as peoples of European descent, with a lot of different narrators from around the scene. But I'm going to drop, when I'm done talking and we're getting your answer, I'm going to drop a link in the chat to
I'll check it out.
An old video called the Indian Wedding Allegory, because very briefly, it just contrasts, if we walked into an Indian wedding and we saw the dances and the dress and the call and responses in Hindi or Urdu, and toasts to the bride and groom referencing old Indian fairy tales and folk fables, and we saw elephant god statues or paintings on the wall, that's ethnoculture, okay? That's steeped in an ethnoculture. Compare that to your average white American wedding, and I'm sure in many parts of the Western world, not to offend anyone, this has been my own family and friends, a lot of them are, I'm sorry, glorified high school dances. They're not steeped in ethnoculture.
No, not at all.
So if we put the front foot on the ethnoculture and re-educated ourselves in formal ways and also informal ways in the home about who we are, where we come from, and it was all seeped in that, and it wasn't a weird thing for, even if it's not the best poem in the world, even if it's clumsy, the best man, as he toasts his friend, the groom, and his bride, referencing Maid Marian and Robin Hood, or Tristan and Isolde, or other lovers from European lore, and all kinds of things like that, then it would kind of take care of itself. We wouldn't really have many people. You're right. Most of us are still dating and mating within the race, but it is increasing, and there's a lot of propaganda.
Yes, yes.
We have to put our front foot on the ethnoculture so that it would be much more apparent that this other person, they might be a nice person. We might get along with them. As I said, personality is just one aspect. It's not the whole thing. So you might get along with this person as a coworker, as a classmate, but that's just one spoke in a holistic wheel of experiences. When you join two families together, what kind of fairy tales you're going to read your kids, what kind of folk heroes, what kind of movies you're going to take them to, what kind of holiday customs are you going to have. When it's so apparent that you're steeped in this ethnoculture, what's outside of it would be that much more alien. So having said all that, do you have anything to say as a father about how you and your wife, I know your little guy's still very young, and you said you have one that's going to be on the way, but do you have any ideas about how you want them to be marinated in that Europeanness, or more specifically your ethnicities?
Well, yeah. So my wife is Irish and German, and her mother is Irish, and her father's English, and then I'm Italian and half American, I guess. So my son's a mutt right off the bat. I don't know which culture to pick, of course, but we were raised Roman Catholics. I still have those morality structures in me to an extent. How would I raise my son here in New Jersey? I mean, I'm just going to tell him the truth. I'm going to make sure he's red pilled very quickly, not like immediately. Obviously, he's only 4, but I'm not going to lie to him. I'm not going to sugarcoat. He's going to have to find his own way, but I'm going to teach him what I've learned over time, and to be a just human being, of course. And then I explained to him everything that I try to tell other people, and he would probably make the right decisions. So I don't know of any, like I said, me myself, I feel rootless. I don't even feel like I live in New Jersey. I don't even feel like I belong here. I've been here for like 30 years or so, 32 years, 33 years, and I still don't feel like New Jersey's my home. If I left New Jersey right now and never came back, I wouldn't care. So I might be that rare, like I said, you guys might say, I might be that rare exception of a person that just has no connection anywhere. And,
how do you know that, though?
Because I've been here for so long.
More home than you thought.
Well, look, like I said, when I go to Italy, it's beautiful, feels great, right? But because I was taken from my homeland, if you will, and bastardized over here, when I go back, I feel like I'm out of place. Then when I come back here, I feel like I'm nowhere. You know what I mean? So, because look what happened to our country. We're so diversified. There's no more street block parties. You know,
Mm.
with the Johnsons next door and the Smiths down the street, and everyone's European or German or Irish, and it's just no one talks anymore. No one plays outside anymore. Everything's being destroyed, not just the ethnoculture. Well, that's obviously been destroyed, but even the family units have been separated completely. You might go to Brooklyn, New York, and you'll see the Portuguese here, the Italians over there, the Jews over here. That's happening over there. When it's really diverse, somehow these people like apart. But like in my town's actually like an ethno state. It's like 97% white, so it's pretty safe here. I got two black neighbors. They're the type of blacks who have succeeded in life. Their families are here. They're all intact. They work. No crime other than for some reason white kids love opium and they die from heroin all the time in this county. So it's very sad. But that's probably because deep down inside subconsciously this anti-white
Yeah.
garbage is literally driving them to kill themselves. I'm
Yeah.
not. I guarantee it's part of it, 100%. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
feel useless, you feel worthless, you feel again. They're trying to destroy the anchors that made this country great and our people great. And I agree with you on that. That they're. I don't know what I should teach my son. I don't know what culture I should. Should I read Nordic fairy tales, or I don't know if that's what you're asking me.
well,
Angelo,
I mean, there's certain things that bind a lot of those, and you know what? I'm happy to. I'll send you some. I'll send you some
Yeah,
things.
no, you can send me. Sure. I mean, like I said, we go with the tip. Like right now, what binds my son to anything is his little shows. There's little funny shows and stuff like this. But like he likes, like for example, okay, he likes the Avengers. He likes Captain America. So I made him very masculine in this sense. I fight with him. I'm the Hulk. He's Captain America. But so I'm raising him like a man. Obviously, I'm not, going to let him turn into some, sissy boy, of course. So he. And what does Captain America stand for? Justice and integrity and things like this. So I think those values alone will make him a good man, of course, and it will probably not drive him to do stupid things in life. Like I said, I have been an angel my whole life when it comes to women partying and all this other stuff. I'll teach them all about that, the consequences of that. So my raising of my son's going to be more of a way of teaching them about justice and logic and reasoning versus emotion and things like this. Again, not to make him a robot, but like I said, sadly, I don't have an ethnoculture to share with him. I could admit that here, right, publicly. I don't have
That's
one.
an honest. That's where you are. It's an honest answer.
I don't, and it's sad. It's sad. But then if I did, could I do what I'm doing? I don't know. That's why it might be not designed to have. For example, I don't like sports. I don't like watching sports. I don't watch football. I don't like when I see people say, "Oh, we won the game." Some Knicks fan, I'm like, "No, you didn't. You're just some guy with a freaking shirt with a guy's name on the back." I will watch the World Cup, and I was in Italy in 2006 when they won. Okay, but that's for every 4 years, and it's Italy, and I like Italy, but I don't like when people are collective mass mind like doing. Like, I won't even go to a concert. I just don't. I'm such an individualistic person like that. However, I don't oppose those of you who want a collective and want to be proud of your hair. I don't. That's none of my business. I'm all for it because it's just to allow people to do what they want to do with themselves. You see where I'm coming from?
Mm.
I'm on the side of justice. So when I say tribalism, I transcend it. Okay, it means that I am on the. A just person would not be anti-white. A just person would not push diversity on you if you don't want it for any reason. Doesn't matter what your reasons are. That's what a just person is. So
Yeah. Well,
that's the only thing.
in a nation state, there has to be a center of gravity, and I think our
Sure.
perspective
Well,
is
of
that it
course.
needs to be the most holistic center of gravity is in fact, and we're taught the opposite now, the essential of who are the things that you can't change, the things that are in you. Like when you're talking about logic and justice, a lot of these
Yeah.
things might be specific iterations of a European heritage, and you might not even see it as
Oh,
such.
like the Greeks, of course, with logic, philosophy. Yeah, that's inherent in our people. We created that. Well, I didn't create it. We brought it out. The logics and the reasoning philosophies, and of course the Europeans with their art and crafts and all that stuff, music, Mozart, Beethoven, all this. Of course, we have many. Of course, they deny this is even our culture. Of course, these anti-whites. That well, you don't have any culture. You don't have any European culture. What's that? What is white people culture? Well, it's everything I just said. So, no, of course there is. I'm just saying personally for me, sadly, I've been, I guess, castrated from the people that I was born with, like born to. But no, I'll still joke and say I'm a Roman. Like, look at my empire. Look how big it was. LOL.
Listen,
You know?
I'll tell you this. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm
Sure.
going to make a suggestion, and then we're going to read these final super chats. And if there are any questions, ladies and gentlemen, please ask them now. You can do so on Entropy or in either of the chats, the YouTube chats. I do also have open D Live. I will take a look at that. If you have donated under $1 on D Live, we are going to give you a group thank you, a blanket thank you for that. We have realized that if we start saying thank you for every penny that is donated, we could end up for a long time saying many thank yous. I mean, you can imagine 99 cents would get 99 thank yous. That would really end up occupying the totality of the show. So if it's under $1, big group thank you. If you do write a message, though, with any donation, I will make sure to read that. But make sure you tag Jared or myself so that we can see the questions. So I will say this to you, Angela, before I ask a question that I really think folks would like to hear the answer to, and that is that when I was in junior high school, I went into junior high school. This is where I really began serving our people, really began questioning 7th grade and then 8th grade, so 11 to 13 years of age. And I went in there and I was very proud, I think first and foremost in my life, probably to be a Southerner. I was a proud Virginian. And then I was proud to be an American and proud to be a white person. Those three things kind of went together. They were one whole. And then I realized when I started to ask these questions and I realized that we were under attack and I began realizing what was really going on, that I could take pride and identify with the totality of all things Western, of all of Western kind, because it was that same biospirit runs through all of our people. When I truly realized that that was indeed the case, the power that I felt, that I could take pride in the great accomplishments of the French, of the Germans, of the Russians, of the English, of the Norwegians, of the Italians, that all of that was my people, all of that was my heritage. Then it wasn't just this narrow focus of let me find where it was white people of a particular country in a particular period in history, whatever it was. Suddenly, it was this broad, beautiful, great white rose blooming in front of me, and just this immense power emanated. So I would suggest to you, when you are rearing your children, anything that shows up that is of our people from anywhere throughout all time, that is the kind of thing that you can share with our children. So if it's a beautiful little dance or something, say, yeah, like you have a daughter that might like that's from Poland, then go ahead and let your daughter indulge this Polish history. Even she doesn't need to actually have a grandma thus and such from Poland, because we are still the brothers and sisters of everyone in Poland in the past and today. It's a beautiful thing when you realize this, the power that comes from it. This is what the anti-whites really fear, is us beginning to realize that we are a single people with many nations. That is something they definitely fear. So here's the question I have for you, and then we'll get to these super chats and any questions, and we'll wrap this up. And that is, what drives you from day to day to do this, what you are doing right now, and to speak up for white well-being?
Well, first of all, like I said, the anti-white agenda is unjust. So my drive is simply justice. It's it. It's not race. It's not. You think it would be race and things like this. It's not. It's justice, anti-supremacy, non-aggression principle. It's these ideologies. It's these abstracts, which you may say is silly because, Angelo, you're blood and flesh and this and that. Yes, we may be, depending on what you believe, we are either souls or we're an emergent phenomenon from biological processes. Either way, we are an intangible person. My personality, where does it exist? No one knows, right? So I believe that's what we are. We are the I, the awareness. We are the thing that observes the thoughts. A lot of people identify with their thoughts. That they're not the thought. Who's listening to the thoughts? That's what you truly are. And that consciousness is all humanity. So you say white, okay? I say all humanity, all just people. That's the difference. But that doesn't mean what you're doing is inferior or anything. It's just another cog in the machine. So your view is this. My view is universal, and it's justice is a universal thing. So that's where I stand. That's what drives me against anti-war. So I'm an anti-war activist. That's why I care about what's happening in the Middle East to people who are not white, because it's wrong. I care what's happening to people who are white in Europe because it's wrong. So that's what drives me. It's just really justice is the only word I can explain. And like I said, if I was a black man, I'd be saying the same thing. I would be saying the same thing. So that's what drives me, and that's really all I've learned over this time. Again, I am not putting down any of the motivations that may drive you guys or anyone else listening. You all have your place in this universe, in this reality. Everyone is, you have to follow your true nature, whatever that is. If you're an eccentric person that doesn't fit in anywhere, well, that's what you are. Trying to fit in where you don't belong, you're going to suffer. Denying what you are and pretending you're something else, same thing. Okay. So if you're a white person who's proud to be white, but you're scared to say it, you're going to suffer. Might as well say it. Who cares what happens, right? So that's my view on things, and that's what drives me every day. It's a sense of justice in me that is universal, and if you share it with all people, okay, including your own, of course, then you have sympathy from other people who see your cause and say, "Hey, we don't want to hurt your white well-being." Of course, that's a great idea. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's the one of the best things is seeing people of color realize this too. Not just your own group, but someone go, "Hey man, what's up with this anti-white stuff?" I was talking to Cynthia McKinney last night, Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, 12 times, and we spoke about it. We spoke about the race mixing propaganda. I said, Cynthia, it makes the black man think the white woman is the best thing, but it also degrades the black woman. I said the black woman's not worth it for the black man. You see? And she goes, yeah, I know. It's all programming. She go, so even she's a woke African American. She's woke. I think she's from Virginia. Anyway, Southerner. And by the way, Southerners have more of Southern people have more of an identity than Northern people, if you ask me. Every time I met a Southern person, they're proud to be where they're from. They're Christian or something, and they love their families. Up north, here in New York, cutthroat. New Jersey, cutthroat. Everyone's detached. It's all money and materialism. The South is like its own country, if you ask me. But that's another story. So, yeah, man, what drives me is just the only word I can think of is justice, and that's it, really.
Well, I really appreciate that. Let's get to some of these. Let's get to some of these questions and these super chats. We have Russell, and actually, I'll save Russell's because that is specifically for you, Angelo. I do have some questions over here on the question widget, and that is, or statements. I guess this is Heidi. Thank you very much, Heidi, for jumping over here. I see you say your funds are low right now, but I wanted to give a huge shout out to Angelo. My dear lady, you two do absolutely not have to give a super chat every time you want to speak. So please just tag and I will read. But I wanted to give a huge shout out to Angelo. My husband and I watch your show. Thank you for speaking the way you do, especially love your last few videos, she writes. Howard over here on the entropy question widget asks, when play fighting, to what degree do you let your kid win? Well, we'll find out if there's time for that question. Thanks very much for that. And then Russell actually has a question and a super chat question, so we'll come back to that in just a minute. We have the great Mrs. Jess Horst super chatting $9.99. Thank you again, my dear lady. My husband has only utilized the GI Bill and went to school and has 2 master's degrees now. Good. He works so hard he has no time to sit at the VA. Well, if he can make use somehow. Oh, I know it's so wretched. I remember reading all about everything going on at the VA, and that's the national health care that they would like to give to all of us. The worst case VA scenarios that there are. Anna super chatting $2, writing great interview. Thanks to all involved. Well, thank you so much for that, Anna. The comment and the super chat. The great outrageously inoffensive over here, super chatting $20. Thank you so much, good sir. Writing props to NWG, Angelo, and the Great Order. I appreciate your candor and the content you all produce. Long live worldwide Europa. And then PS writes, Kofi's not working, so I had to support the commies rather than digital coffee. Thank you so much for that, good friend, the super chat and the comment and the info that you shared right there. I don't see any questions popping up in the regular No White Guilt super chat or over here on gardening, but we do have two specifically here for Angelo that we will be sure to address now from Russell. The first is Russell, $5 super chatting on Entropy. Thank you very much for that. And writing, Mr. Gage, I'm also not a supremacist. That said, from my life's experience, one who says he loves all families but does not put his own family in priority has no sincere care for any family. Now, just hold that in your head there for a second, Angelo. We'll let you speak to it, because Russell also has a question over here in the question widget. Does Mr. Gage feel no affinity to the white race, or does he think Italians, Irish, Germans, Polish, etc. do not constitute a race or people? So both of those are specifically for you, Angelo, and the floor is yours.
Okay, yeah. So of course I put my family first. Obviously, my son, my wife, more important than anything. My son more important than my wife. That's the truth. That's the way it works. I mean, once you become a father, one of the questions was, how does your question you sent me, when I was becoming a father, taught me? It's taught me self-sacrifice. I no longer matter. Now my son and my baby to be at some point is what matters in my life. So I put my family first, of course, before anyone. In fact, when I disowned my sister, it was to protect my family. Think of it like that, because that was the case. I didn't want my son to see something I thought was not the right thing to do, and learn from and go, why is Aunt Stephanie, why is my sister? I didn't want that to happen. So that was one of the thought processes. And do I feel an affinity to the white race? I mean, I'm Italian. I do believe that our people, the European, the Caucasoid race, is basically, we're no different than dogs. There's all these dogs, but they're different breeds, and these dogs have different. I believe in racial realism to an extent. Of course, I think that it does have predictive power on a general scale. Do I feel an affinity to my race? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I feel an affinity to just the word white. White to me is an umbrella term that describes all the different brothers and sisters from different regions of Europe. That's what it's an umbrella term. So, do I like my race more than another race or something like this? Would I prefer? Possibly. I don't know. I don't think along racial lines anymore. Again, I'm not denying race. I'm not saying it's wrong to think this way at all. But I, of course, naturally, instinctively, would probably, if it came down to it, have to defend my people, of course, above all other people, because they're more related to me. This is on a genetic level. This is a survival level, biologically. Idealistically, abstractly, it's all that matters to me are good people. Because suppose I lived in an all-white ethno state, and my neighbors were meth addicts. I wouldn't want to be around these people, So you have to understand that there's different races, and you can claim superiority, inferiority in different contexts. It's all arbitrary. It's all based on your values. If you don't value those values, it doesn't matter. Okay, this race runs faster. This race has a higher. Okay, whatever. These are all different breeds. But when it comes to me, is this person good or bad? Again, what good is my neighbor who's white, who's handsome, but he's Ted Bundy, a serial killer? What good is that to me? I'd rather live next to this black dude over here who's great with his family and things like this. So I don't know if that question is.
Yeah, I ask. I mean, as I said, outliers. Yes, there's murderers in every. But
Of course.
what do you base? What is the center of gravity that you would base a nation around?
Well, I would think a nation of laws would be the most powerful, but I know that comes from a culture. Where did Roman law come from? Did it come from Japan? Did it come from the Koreans? No. So what I'm saying, for me, you take America, right? There's people who want an ethno state. Okay. I was one of these people who thought this was possible, ethno state breaking up, this and that. But ultimately, when you have a multiracial society like this, you need more strong laws. You need like very strong, powerful laws that put people in their place, because there's no racial and there's no homogeneity there. There's no brother. You see, there's studies that show that countries that are more homogenous have more willing to give to each other, right? This makes sense. Not even on a racial sense. If I'm a Republican, why would I donate to a Democrat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So homogeneity brings more unity. This is true. Okay. So our country's so diverse, there is no homogeneity. The only thing we can do is appeal to abstracts. Even whites here, the white phenomenon here, it's a United States thing. White nationalism, for example, is an American thing. In Italy, in the Greeks, I like, for example, I used to speak to a guy who was from Golden Dawn. He goes, Ange, I'm a Greek. What do I have to do with a guy in Wyoming? What's my culture with him? I'm Greek. The Greeks have they have their Greek nationalists there. The Italians have theirs. The Irish have theirs. And like Jason mentioned, we've had internation wars forever. But that's not an excuse. Now the whole world's at war with us. Now we have to unite. You see, we were on top of the world for a while, right? And then we got lazy. That's what happened. We got lazy. We lost our roots. We imported slaves. We did all these things. And that's complacency kills. The one thing I learned from the Marine Corps guys is that complacency kills. If you're on the top and you think you're comfortable, there's someone out there trying to get you. And the second you slip up, which the boomers did, no question about it, this is what happens. This is the result. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I think like you guys in regards to racial anchoring, if you will, or rootness, but I don't oppose you or anyone else who does. I think it's great. I think that's part of the natural order. You talk about the great order. The great order of the cosmos is diversity of homogeneous groups. That's the truth. That's nature in every way, species, subspecies, and some of these things mix together. Some of these things evolve together. And but it's again, very different in different ways. So I don't know if that answers this question. I think it may have answered the question because I'll tell you what, I don't feel the same pride I used to when I was fanatic. I could say that. I made a video, if you guys ever saw Make Whites Great Again. I don't know if you ever saw that video. Oh, it was a motivational video. It's gone now. I mean, I told people to take it down and stuff, but some people still have it up. So if you Google it, you can find me. Very motivational speech about making whites great again, talking about being great and this and that. You guys probably appreciate it. But I had people in the clips that I can't really associate with anymore. And I said, "Yeah, take it down. I don't want to be involved with that." But anyway, point is, when it comes to the white race, I look at it as a group of families. Okay. And again, I can only relate to Italians, but there are things that the Irish or the German I agree with. Of course, the German with his, like, for example, my father-in-law is German, English and German. He just has a thing about him, his work ethic, his kindness, his generosity. You know what I mean? So there's different biospirits, as you would say, and different groups too. So we all share like the source, but there's a manifestation of each group. Okay, like the Swedish guy is not the same as a Spaniard. I mean, this is not the case. You know what I mean? But they have similar things. We're more able to mix together if we had to, like America was, than say a Swede and some Korean guy, or something like that.
Yeah. It's
Certainly.
great. When I started the Great Order, same thing. Your humanity as such, or a soul level, that's part of it as well. There's a level of consideration there as well. I think the times that we live in, it's more a question of emphases. Like they'll say, well, these people didn't think of themselves as white. There are historical precedents. Mentioned videos I've done where I'll reference things like the massacre at Chios. Jason actually narrated that part in the Who We Are video, but when the Greeks got attacked by the Ottomans in 1820, all of Europe responded in horror. There's a lot of instances like that can kind of counteract the brother wars and kind of show you there was, when push came to shove, a European consciousness. All the science discoveries among universities, whether it was Italy, Denmark, Germany, they were all sharing things with each other.
Well, even Jan Jabiecki, the Polish king who got all of Europe together to fight back the Islamic invasion.
Yeah, and I will say from our experience here, speaking to people around the world, we've certainly spoken to Europeans who will use the word white and understand their ethnicity, but still also understand that nested within the wider umbrella of the civilizational racial thing. And we talk to people from Australia, different parts of Europe, all over the world, South Africa, and instantly there's just a rapport. We get we get each other, and on a more practical level, to your point, we do know people like Poseidon, like Frodi from Scandinavia, all kinds of people who will, and Poseidon's from Greece, who do use the word white and even words like nationalism. So just to inject into the record that we've seen that from our people in Europe as well. So we do invite you to check that out, and maybe some of the episodes.
I will say,
we appreciate your candor. And
I will say this though, if you let me, because whites are on attack, what they're doing. Look what they're doing, like Italy and all these countries. Look at France's soccer team. What the globalists have done
Right.
is take out what French means from now it could be anybody. It's like they made football teams of the whole world interchangeable citizens. So when you close your eyes, 50 years ago, think of the French team, you'd see all white French people. Now you don't know what you see anymore. So now the term white would apply to all people on earth, all the whites, even though it started in America with the British, white, black, this and that. But now, since we're all under attack, when you say, well, I'm Italian, what does that mean? Because there's a black Italian soccer player, there's an Asian dude down the street who runs a, Chinese food store. He's Italian, according to the citizenship. So now you have to get to the racial component. You see, so we're forced to use the word white in the sense. Otherwise, we'd say, I'm Italian. Who are you? You're Irish? Oh, and we'd know we could, for example, I could tell you, you have to be Celtic in some way just from your red hair and your red beard. I can tell that, you see, as an Italian. And you got to see that I'm a Southern European because I have dark features, so we can tell each other apart as Europeans. But now that there's this whole anti-white hatred across the globe, we have to unify under this umbrella because we're being attacked under that umbrella, in a sense. That's how we identify ourselves from the globalist scheme of making it all different countries, soccer teams. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, indeed. And we appreciate that. What we do here, and we're wrapping up, folks, it's been a fantastic tap today, as is always the case. I want to give a big thank you to Seaver and Ray for doing the moderating today. It was you guys did a fantastic job, especially moderating over there on D Live, as well, as we are new to that platform and just getting used to things. We also have 2 more super chats, and from the same S, and then a space and the letter S, 11 super chats twice. The first time, $15. Thank you so much, my good brother. Writing brothers, hello. And then super chatting $2 more, writing defend our culture. Amen. Thank you for those kind super chats and your thoughts, saying a lot to the anti-whites by contributing here in the good work that we are doing for white well-being. I was just going to say, Angelos, I'm going to ask you to give your final thoughts, is this, that what we are doing here, we use the word white as an ancillary term to the primary terms, which are Western kind, Westman, and both M-A-N and M-E-N, because we are a people. Wherever we have gone as a people, whether we considered ourselves Italians or Swiss or whatever it was, wherever we showed up, we built Western civilization. That means there's something innate in us, something intrinsic that is in us that isn't in the other groups of people. The other groups of people have different biospirits. Where they go, they recreate the exact same cultures that they had created in their places of origin. And they recreate those cultures in the midst of us as well when they enclave. And this is all quite natural. One is not better than the other. But if you wanted to, I guess, try to measure, you could possibly look at where people point their feet. You don't see many people around the globe pointing their feet to go to certain places, and you see many people around the world of all different races pointing their feet toward Western civilization. So if you wanted to put a measurement on it, it would be the measurement of where people put their feet. So we find, and what we're doing here is that we are finding and speaking to that one thing that unites all Westmen, whether we have heritage of this, that, or the other thing, and that is that biospirit that unites us all as one, enables us to transition from one Western country to another, enables us to feel in a sense of a harmony in different Western countries that we can't experience in non-white countries. And it's the reason why non-white people simply feel discomfort in Western civilization. That's why they're busily at work trying to recreate what feels natural and harmonious to them. Don't bear them any grudge for that. We just should not have been mashed together by anti-whites. So please tell people where folks can find you, what you're working on next. And then after we hear from you, we'll pass it over to Jared. Please, sir.
Yeah. Find me on Twitter is where I do most of my activism, if you will, against the Zionist cabal and things like that. Got a big following there. It's bigger than my YouTube by a long run. My YouTube is just my name, Angelo John Gage. You find me there. Reality Engage just started. I've done like 13 shows or so. They've been pretty good, pretty well received. I hope to do more. I've been inspired by many people, of course, to start a show because I was like, I'm not a good host. But anyway, that's where you'll find me mostly. That's where I do most of my talking is on Twitter. And then sometimes I'll put up videos for like life coaching things, personal issues. Sometimes I'll talk about this struggle itself. Owning your past was my last video, speaking of skeletons in your closet, that's a good video for that. But that's where I'm at, guys. So YouTube, and while I'm still there, I'm a small channel right now, 2,500 viewers. I'm sorry, subscriptions. But my Twitter is where I'm really active, though. But
Big Twitter account.
Yeah, so.
Thank you so much for appearing with us, and especially for sharing that painful part of your life. It's very meaningful, and it's gonna reach a lot of people who are experiencing the same thing. Jared George, where can people find you? What are you working on next, brother?
Yeah, well, we do. Yeah, we thank you, Angelo. It's been a great conversation. Thank you for coming on. It's great to finally talk. You all may know, but we always have new people in. Everything I do goes through greatorder.com. So you'll see all of my activities, ways to contact, ways to support. Of course, about a month ago now, we started the afterparty.tv, and that's all the media Jason and I do together, and then some videos, whether separate or together, editorial videos, community videos too, because we have an amazing community here who contributes their own remixes of videos or their music increasingly, a lot of kind of crossover with White Art Collective and Jeff and what he's doing and some of that scene, a lot of activity. So you guys know that's the important thing. If there's any feedback about watching the show in the embedded entropy window on our Watch Live Now page, please do reach out. We're working on tweaks with entropy, but we were excited to be first to market with the way you could watch a stream right on our site, because we don't want you relying on social media. That could go away. So please do remember, and we'll increasingly be doing this as we promote shows. Really, the URL is to go to the afterparty.tv, to that Watch Live Now page. That's where we're going to be increasing our focus. Also, the newsletter. Please sign up to the newsletter on the Keep Up to Date tab. That's another way that we have direct way to contact you all. And there's a few things going on. So Jason and I were talking, and we're thinking of doing, and it's late night somewhere, the audio only kind of late night radio show tomorrow night, Friday night, November 22nd at 10:30 Eastern. We haven't done one of those laid back, spontaneous, fun, late night FM radio type shows in a while, certainly since we started the afterparty.tv. But the whole point is to be more active, be doing more shows. And it'll be informal. We'll be talking with the audience, but we're going to use it as an occasion to play in that stream a third new skit from me and Philosophicat. You're going to get to see that, a little humor. So we're going to first glance at that. I guess we'll play my latest Red Ice feature because my second episode for them is up. And we'll do a little bit of a tour on lastmessagetothewest.com. That's, of course, the video contest that I organized with Australia's lovely Porridge. You have 1 week from today to November 28th, Thanksgiving Day in the United States, to vote. We have 29 videos that people contributed to. We had yet another spontaneous, generous donation. We did not ask for this. Many people stepped forward, including our own Raymond and Heidi, who are doing modding tonight, to contribute to make the prize fund nice and juicy so we could recognize some winners, even though all of the videos will certainly be useful going forward as a library of ways that you can share these with friends and family to wake them up in different ways. But it's fun to make it a little competition. So somebody just donated $100 for a fifth prize. So we have well over $1,200 in prizes to give out, 5 prizes total. So we'll make some people happy in the upcoming Christmas Yule season, give away some gifts. But yeah, lastmessagetothewest.com. Get over there. Daughter of Albion was in the chat tonight. She's one of the participants who made a great video for it. But we'll do a little tour of that site on Friday night on the It's Late Night Somewhere stream as well. So look out for that. Please join us if you can tomorrow night. And I give it over to my friend Jason to take us out.
Well, thank you, good sir. It's been a fantastic show. Thank you all for showing up. Everybody who commented in the chat, everybody who's watching live, everybody who will be watching in replay. Thank you all for being here. It's been a splendid time. Let me recognize a few people. First, I want to say a blanket thank you to everybody who gave less than $1 over on D Live. And thank you to Ray, who gave $3 plus. I don't know the exact sum, but thank you very much for that, my dear friend. I'll spotlight a few folks. I saw The Leftover in the chat. I saw Eternalism, White Awakening, great name. Marcus Rex was also in the chat tonight. So thank you all for commenting. Everybody, a big thank you for super chatting and supporting the good work we are doing for White Wellbeing. It is fantastic to be with you all, as is always the case. We thank Mr. Angelo John Gage for being with us and for his being candid with all of these questions. And we look forward to seeing you all again next time.